Good afternoon, Senators. Afternoon session of the 22nd of July, 2024. Prior to the suspension, Senators, we were debating a bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority. Senator, the Honorable Quintin Liburn was about to commence his contribution. I presume you're now ready to proceed? The Chair recognizes the Senator, the Honorable Quintin Liburn.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a great pleasure to contribute today to this groundbreaking compendium of bills on cannabis. It is with a sense of being on the right side of history that I rise to contribute on these bills this afternoon, which are very significant pieces of legislation. So far, this debate has been very consensual, informative debate with a great deal of good sense and good passion from all points of the political compass on both sides of this upper house. I would very warmly congratulate my Senate colleague, the Attorney General, Ryan Pinder, and the Minister of Health, Minister Michael Darville, for working diligently on bringing this election promise to fruition. It's really important that we take good notes of the reality on the ground. Passing laws is easy, and changing regulations is easy for the legislator. But affecting change on the ground is deeply important for the thousands of people we are debating and working for. Yet, notwithstanding criticisms from some quarters regarding these bills, this administration will be able to complete this afternoon something that will impact generations to come in a positive way. I've got a personal insight to this legislation because I know someone that was diagnosed with arthritis and it was well managed by cannabis. It had given me a keen awareness that pain management and chronic medical conditions are life-defining for millions and millions of people around the world. We here in the Bahamas have a little over 400,000 Bahamians that we serve a medical cannabis or anything that can help to alleviate those conditions surely needs to be properly ventilated and properly worked through for the benefit of our Bahamian people. These legislations shouldn't be held back by sentiments and outdated thinking. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done in crafting the path for this legislation, but this is a great step moving forward. I am view that we should do our best as legislators to help people with chronic pain, anxiety, insomnia, and other conditions. That's not to say that the medical cannabis is a silver bullet, but it does work for millions of people worldwide, and it does deserve to go further. We don't even need to look far away, but within our region. 9 years ago, Jamaica decriminalized marijuana. The passage of this legislation does not create for a free-for-all in the growing, transporting, dealing, or exporting of cannabis. The security forces will continue to rigorously enforce Bahamian law consistent with our international treaty and obligations. Importantly, the bills are drafted to ensure compliance with other international treaties and signals our strengthened resolve to combat against illegal trafficking in all forms of prohibited drugs. For avoidance of any doubt, let me be absolutely clear. The Royal Bahamas Police Force and Defense Force will continue to rigorously enforce our Bahamian law. Our Bahamian law enforcement agencies have worked hard with our international partners to make significant inroads about narcotics trafficking and the transitional crime organization over the years, and there will be no relaxation on that regard. These criminals that I just spoke about are the ones importing illegal guns into the Bahamas as compensation for illicit trafficking. These illegal guns are used in the violent slaughter of hundreds of our men, women, and children each year. And this reminds me that I would like to deeply express my condolences to Mr. Maurice Tynes, former chief clerk. I know Mr. Tynes very well. I went to high school and graduated with his daughter, Latara Tynes, and knew all of his children. Went to his home and sought great advice from him on many instances. And for me, Mr. Tynes, I would like to express my sincere condolences to you on the loss of your son, Jamie. These organized crimes participate in the ones that are corrupting our security forces and public officials that undermine governance systems, and they stifle our economic growth. We recognize that certain monitoring, reporting, and other enforcement mechanisms must be implemented to safeguard against this licensed activity. These reforms will be supported by the regulatory framework that the Cannabis Authority will oversee. Expunging records for small quantities of marijuana is another positive aspect of these bills. Even Bill Bratton, the former NYPD commissioner and strong proponent of the broken windows policy, now admits that arrests of possession of small amounts of marijuana are unnecessary and of limited utility. The NYPD, working in collaboration with the former mayor de la Placio's office, the courts, and City 5 district attorneys, determined that the order maintenance value of these arrests was low, while the cost in police time and resources and community concern was high. As a result, going forward, police will be summoning offenders for their violation rather than arresting them. So, these legislation and this policy that we are discussing and debating today goes with and supports the experience of the NYPD. These pieces of legislation can also remove a source of friction between police and community. Some of our citizens do not regard smoking a joint, as it's called, as materially different from smoking a cigarette or drinking alcohol. The community doesn't view these youth as criminal, so their arrest by the police inevitability perceived or can be perceived as harassment or oppression. Therefore, we anticipate that an improvement in the police-citizen relations as one of the positive aspects of this legislation. In concluding, let me recap the significance of this bill. It will expand Bahamians' access to medical and therapeutic cannabis products to fight against a range of diseases and related symptoms, authorize the production of cannabis, impose quality assurance measures for safety, efficacy, and effectiveness, and provide for use of cannabis for religious purposes. It will protect the health of the public by controlling access to cannabis and enhance public awareness of the health risks associated with cannabis use. It will provide for a robust monitoring of cannabis throughout all phases, from cultivation to disposal. It also facilitates for the first time, at last, that Rastafarians have the freedom to practice their religion as guaranteed by our Constitution. Since the bill was debated in the other place, we've seen a greater positive impact by the sustained group of Bahamians. Just recently, Copeland Smith and James Roll and a large group of Rastas conducted a community cleanup over the weekend because, as you can see, what happens when we empower Bahamians positively. I'm confident that members of this House will support the passage of these important pieces of legislation. And as I stated in the beginning, Madam President, please don't be on the wrong side of history. Stand up with us and be on the right side of history for once. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Quinton Lightburn. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Madam President, I thank you for the recognition, and I want to commend Senator Lightburn for what I thought was a very erudite presentation. And I believe that we are I believe that we are standing together today. So
Right side.
so if you find me on your side, I think you call it the right side.
Right side.
Yeah, you call it the right side.
You're welcome anytime.
You call it the right side. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General. Madam President, as I listened to this debate, and as I gathered information ahead of this debate, many persons shared their thoughts with me from various segments of our community. And as Senator Rami said when he spoke, sometimes we speak as a voice for the voiceless in here, who can't share their thoughts. And so I thought I would share a few thoughts relative to this compendium of bills that are before us. And I obviously have the wrong one here in my hand. And so, yeah. So, no. Thank you. So this morning we've come, but just this afternoon, I'm sorry, it's still in the morning. We've come to debate a compendium of bills associated with legalization of cannabis for medical and religious purposes, to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of cannabis, and to regulate the cultivation, sale, and use of cannabis and related products within our borders. But I'd also like to, Madam President, add my voice of condolence to that of my colleagues who spoke before. Extend condolences to great MCM Ware from Exuma, his family, to the families of Minister Miles Garoda and Mr. Tynes, who served as clerk in this place, on the loss of their sons. On the weekend, Pastor Kerry and his wife laid to rest their son in Foxtown. The Russells, they had a funeral as well in Cooperstown, and on the weekend, again, the Sawyers will lay to rest their sons. I find it difficult reconciling parents bearing children. You know, we always feel that it should be the other way around, but we have this faith in God that He does all things well, and whatever He does is well done. And my brother from Grand Bahama preached a wonderful sermon this morning, so I won't follow him. I'd perhaps just ask for the collection, and we can move on. So we will also approve, Madam President, the longevity and regenerative therapies bill. At the outset, I appreciate all who've reached out to me ahead of today to share their views in hopes of having their thoughts distilled in this place on their behalf. Frankly, I'm humbled that people still trust politicians to carry their words. We find ourselves, Madam President, at a time when citizens don't even wish to exercise their God-given right to vote. And that's a sad commentary for all of us on either side. It's something we have to fix, but it's not just in the Bahamas. It's universal, it seems. It's all across the world. And so we're elected on their trust, and we tell them we're going to do better. We say we're going to do better in our efforts to retain power. We do what we think is necessary to hold on. So I often say that we in this country, after 51 years of independence, are at what business gurus call a strategic inflection point. We are at the fork in the road, if you will. And depends on which one of those roads we take in the fork, we will either swim or sink. That's just the way it is. We are at a pivotal time in our development. And so what we do here today is not to be taken lightly. It represents massive change for our country. And I dare say, in the last near 3 years that this administration has been in office, I believe it's one of the more significant things that they have done. And so change like this requires bringing everyone along as best as you can, because as governments you come to do what you believe is in the better interest of the country, best interest of the people. And you're not always going to have everyone along with you. It's not always going to be a happy choir singing to the hymnal of the day. People have a right in a democracy to dissent and to share their views. We are at that point where we're humble and considered opinion. Our humble and considered opinion is that we must determine what is in the best interest of the country. That's why we're elected as leaders, and that's why we're sent to these places. Or should we simply say to Bahamians, as they already know, that decisions have consequences with which we are forced to live? The government on this side will live with our decision to do what we do here today. You are in the majority, so you're going to get the brunt of the most of that. We are in the minority, so we will carry least load, as they say. As parents, it's our job to prepare our children for life and when we're gone. Brother Duncan, we're no longer here. We should have them fully prepared for what life would bring their way. As a government, it is our job to empower citizens to make decisions that they believe to be in their best interest. That is the nature of democracy. You know, at some point, we're going to have to come to a place where we trust the Bahamian people to do what they feel is in their best interests. At some point, we gotta come to a place as governments in the Bahamas where you don't want to hold hands anymore. You just want to place decent decisions before you. You choose which way you should go. When seeking to convince Bahamians of his government's assurance that they were doing the right thing with marijuana, our Prime Minister asserted, for years Bahamians have called for an administration to have the courage to step up and take this issue on in a decisive and responsible manner. While many other countries, including nations within our region like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbados, have taken steps toward decriminalization and legalization for medical use, Bahamians were left wondering when it would be our turn to modernize our local approach. I've heard it said that, and here that we had the report. The commission started its work in the Bahamas in 2018, led by a leading professor from the University of the West Indies, who who came, went around the region really, sanctioned by CARICOM, to hear the views of people. And the general consensus was that the region and Bahamians were ready for the next step, to legalize specifically medical marijuana, and then to a lesser extent for general use, to a lesser extent. There wasn't much appetite for full-on legalization for people to just recreational use, right? Yeah, but the report came out at the end of what? 2019? 2020? 2020. You were in office from 2020, 21, so you had the report a year. You had the report 3 years to now, but you still say we keep it too long. I don't understand.
We released it a year ago.
Yeah, but you know, the report was completed in 2020. Let's do these things. Let's do these things. What are you trying to say, right? Let's just do these things as a continuation, right? Don't matter how. Because if I had the report, if I had the report from 2020, if I had the no, let me listen, man. Listen, I'm a big boy. Any road you want to go on, let's go. Any road you want to go on, let's go, right? That is what I come here for. I'm just trying to make a point. The point I'm trying to make is very simple. It's very simple. So there's no need to throw no blame there. The report was released in 2020 by you. Fine. The report was finalized in 2020. Fine. We're now in 2024. Yeah, I just making a point. I just making the counterpoint. No, man. You're the only one in here with glass jaw when you get knocked. You shatter your jaw and you start cussing. Yeah, that's the point I make. And so responsibility of governance, and we say it, but we only pay lip service to it, is continuation. And you are at that stage now where you're taking the next step, and we on this side support that step. Now, after indicating that the national dialogue on the subject had been going on for a better part of a decade, the Prime Minister went on to say, among other things, that once we felt we had an adequate draft, we released the draft bills publicly and held a number of stakeholder consultation sessions. And we heard from the AG that he led many of those sessions with various segments of the community, namely the Rastafarian group that would be impacted by this. And my brother, Senator Raming, laid their thoughts in a document that he tabled, or he should have tabled. And so he could just table it. He has to table it, Madam President, on the record, so he has to be on his feet, so that the clerk indicated that he has to be on his feet when he tables it, so that he could recognize that he tables it for you. Yeah. Yes, thank you. And so the impact of legalization, decriminalization on the usage and proliferation of usage can be great in our country, and so it has to be monitored very carefully. Over time it was consensus for, remember, the 30s they had a prohibition on alcohol, and then marijuana kind of followed that same prohibition. But yeah, I wanted to share the Christian Council's thoughts, as I promised them I would. And in their statement, the Christian Council voiced its non-support of the cannabis bill and the Regulations 24, despite noting the government's assurances that the introduction of the cannabis industry, excuse me, the introduction of the cannabis industry would be good for the Bahamas and would result in the creation of thousands of jobs. Christian Council say we are not convinced that this is the best use of our creative and industrial talent as a people, and do not support the idea. Of course, Senator Raming mentioned as well the Rastafarian position. Their view is that they feel the body is the temple, and wherever that body is, that temple should to partake in the sacrament. And that's as simply as I can put it.
Yes.
They do not wish to be confined to a specific locale, as we would in the traditional church. But then sometimes, you know, the priest or the minister will go visit homes, and apply the sacrament. And so I think they have the opportunity as well in their home spaces to do that if they find it is necessary to go and partake of the sacrament in that manner. And so I would like to table this document from the Christian Council so that it could be part of the records of this debate, as I promised them that I would. I think I promised, and I kept my promise, that my word was that it would be. I support the Christian Council, and I want to just table their. I adopt it. Yeah, I adopt it. Since I have to. No, since I have to, I'll. You want me to read it? You want me to read it? You don't want me to read it?
Do whatever you wish. It's your contribution.
Let me read it. Let me read it. Let me read it then. Yes, it's kind of lengthy. That's why I didn't want to. The release is dated July 17th. Yeah, I don't need much time. Why? I don't need much time, man. I'm done really. I'm done. You don't need much time. You know, the press release is dated July 17, 2024. Bahamas Christian Council not in support of current cannabis bill and regulations 2024. The Bahamas Christian Council is not in support of the cannabis bill and regulations 2024. In its current form has been tabled and just recently debated in the House of Assembly. We have some deep concerns with a number of the items contained in the present bill and regulations as articulated by Prime Minister Philip Davis and Minister of Health Michael Dowell. That's the first paragraph. I go to the last paragraph. I'll go to the last paragraph. We are also being advised that this current bill will include the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. We would like to stress strongly to the government that many in our churches do not support the criminalization of marijuana. We could walk, you always say, you know, you could walk and chew gum at the same time, man. Marijuana of any form or in any quantity. That's not the last paragraph. We believe that the government should publish and promote the findings of any and all research and data to indicate the effects on that decriminalization of the legalization of marijuana would have on our society, especially, I think this is important to note. I think it's important. On our young people, most especially, its impact or potential on the life and livelihood of our citizens in New Providence, as well as in our family islands. We also believe that the government should publish and promote the findings of any and all research and data to indicate the effects of introducing the cannabis industry, what it would have on the country and its citizens, most especially, again, its impact on the community and our way of life in New Providence and family islands. Without the above mentioned initiatives completed, documented and shared with the citizens of the country, we cannot support the cannabis bill. That's their position. And I support their position. I support them to have a position. I support their views, and I so table their document. What I read in that was the concerns for how you regulate. You know, I've come to a place now. I don't pay you much mind. You know, I don't pay you much mind because I know you're very innocent, right? I understand all of that. I understand all of that, man. I understand that. You know, what they shared with me personally was this notion that when we regulated and made lawful gaming in the country, there were stipulations that people be treated for addiction. And they want to know that these same kind of stipulations would be in place to monitor controls of addiction in the country. I have a personal issue in that I have a brother who smoked marijuana and had psychosis from it, and he now is schizophrenic. And so, you know, the more we liberalize these things and make them available, we have to be cognizant of these types of issues. And so there must be monitoring to ensure that I appreciate all the controls that are in place in the bill as it relates to pharmacies, having direct control of the issuance of medical cannabis. That is a good thing. It's a controlled environment. Pharmacists know how to control drugs. And I suppose as we go on in life, you know, I once stayed in a home in California where the fellow had a hydroponic lab, and he was growing weed as tall as mountains in a controlled environment. And what he did was, how he supported his growth was, his friends just came who were sick, and they just purchased from him. Because in some parts of I was in Sacramento actually. In some parts of California, I was worried because I was still in the military, and when he showed me his lab, I said, "What the hell are you doing here?" but it was one of those things in school where you go couch surfing, and you end up it was legal there, so I just didn't have to concern myself with that. So we will never have consensus on an issue as a motive as the use of cannabis in our country. We won't have consensus, but we must seek to have in place safeguards to mitigate abuse. No Bahamian wishes to see an increase in criminal activity and the further destruction of our communities. I know the government answered, and the AG shared their release with me, answered the Christians Council release. He shared that with me, and I appreciate that. And so, on this side, Madam President, we share the view that those who have for years suffered because of the punitive nature of the business of cannabis will somehow find themselves in a position to now benefit, as was clearly pointed out by the good senator beside me here. Spent a great deal of his presentation talking about the historical abuse that many in our communities suffered, and they will now have an opportunity, we hope, somehow to participate in this industry and to recover all that they have lost. And with those few words, I thank you. I rest.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Thank you, Rev.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon. Once again, Madam President, I am always thankful to Almighty God for all His many blessings that I enjoy, including being able to stand in this honorable place to speak on behalf of the good people of this great country, especially the people of Grand Bahama, to include Sweeting Ski and Waterkey. I am always prompted to thank our distinguished Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, for this opportunity to serve this country in this capacity. I will continue to offer prayers for his success and good health, especially as he goes through his minor surgery, and invite all Bahamians to do the same. Madam President, with your leave, I wish to preface my contribution by extending condolences and join my colleagues in extending condolences to our brother, Minister Miles LaRoda, on the passing of his son, as well as to my good friend, Ms. Greta Knowles, officer in charge of immigration down there in Grand Bahama, on the passing of her husband. I wish to also offer congratulations and great success wishes to our Olympic team. Madam President, let me mention first that Mr. Alonzo Russell, listen to the last name, who was attending his third Olympics, is my close cousin from the great community of Hunters Grand Bahama, and I know that he will make us all proud. Madam President, there are 2 athletes on the list who received the developmental training in Moores Island. One, the great Stephen Gardner, and second, the youthful Miss Quincy Penn, Moores Island. No, he ain't from Moores Island. Let me repeat it. Oh, Madam President, there are 2 athletes on the list who received the developmental training.
There you go.
Yes, sir. In Moores Island. The great Stephen Gardner, and second, the youthful Miss Quincy Penn.
Yes, sir.
We all know of the great accomplishments of Mr. Gardner. So let me mention that as a freshman, Quincy Penn has set the 400-meter record, school record, for Alabama State University. She is a 2-time medalist at Carifta and the 400-meter high school national champion. Why am I giving special mention to these athletes, one may ask? Well, let me tell you. Madam President, there's a Bahamian known as Bishop Anthony Williams who lives in Moores Island. He and his wife has dedicated their life to helping young Bahamians realize their full potential from 1994. On the island of Moores Island, they have turned their home into a boarding house for boys and girls, and track and field is just one part of their program. These athletes must become fully engaged in church life, and their school life must become a priority. Bishop William preaches the 3 Ds to succeed: discipline, dedication, and determination. His athletes have done tremendous at national events, the Penn Relays, and other major track and field events all around the world. Many of his boys and girls have attained college degrees and are doing well. Madam President, you should see the track where they train. He basically cut a field in the middle of the bush by hand and did his best to remove boulders and tree stumps and rocks. With the help of the good people of Moores Island, he began the development of a track and field complex, and have been seeking help to complete it. I have seen it for myself, and I know that once completed, that facility under Bishop Williams' guidance will have the potential to do for Bahamian athletes what the MVP Track and Field Club has done for Jamaicans. I am confident that this compassionate government and the hard-working minister responsible, the Honorable Mario Boleg, will look into the matter concerning Moores Island Track with urgency. Now, to the matter at hand. Yeah. Madam President, as we debate this bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority, I am pleased to support this comprehensive piece of legislation that seeks to introduce new economic streams where ordinary Bahamians can benefit. Madam President, there has been extensive conversation on the health benefits of medical marijuana, as well as the vast array of manufacturing opportunity that are possible utilizing cannabis. Therefore, I will spend a few minutes talking about the bill itself, in particularly the functions of the Cannabis Authority. Madam President, before I move into that, let me say that this bill that we are debating here today is free from outside interference, pressures, or influence. Madam President, the cannabis bill creates the necessary framework for the regulation of cannabis. However, the public should know that within this bill, there is an agenda outlining the continual development of crucial policies, procedures, regulations, as well as management strategies necessary to prudently accomplish the goals and resultant expectations acknowledged by the government, while protecting those special attributes that makes this country unique and special, and will require the hands-on involvement of all stakeholders. Madam President, Part 2 of the bill seeks to establish the Bahamas Cannabis Authority. It establishes the authority's power and function. It states that the authority shall develop policies, procedures, and guidelines to establish and regulate cannabis for medical, scientific, manufacturing, religious purposes, as authorized by the Act. The Cannabis Authority will not only become, the cannabis industry will not become a runaway train, but will be seriously regulated. In carrying out its mandate under Section 1, the authority shall ensure that cannabis is handled in an efficient manner and stored in safe place. B, the authority will ensure that cannabis is manufactured, produced, stored, distributed, sold, and made available in a safe and efficient manner. The authority will issue licenses for the handling of cannabis in accordance with the provisions outlined in this Act. It will keep and maintain a public register of license issued under this Act, which shall include the names of the license, the type of license issued, and the registered office of the licensees. Madam President, the authority will develop enforcement procedures to ensure compliance with the provisions of this Act, and they will establish and maintain a confidential database, electronically or otherwise, to include information relating to patients, medical practitioners prescribing cannabis, licensees, and caregivers, the amount of cannabis handled by licensees in accordance with this Act, and they will ensure compliance with the requirements of this Act to prevent abuse of cannabis in any form. Where required, the authority will provide analytical services for licensees. The public should also know that there will be provisions for the electronic tracking of the handling of cannabis in accordance with the law. The authority will provide for the distribution of educational materials and conduct training programs in relation to the cannabis industry and the development and use of cannabis. Madam President, the authority must ensure that proper disposal requirements as prescribed are complied with. Let's go a little further. The authority shall, in consultation with the Director of the Bureau of Standards, develop quality, safety, proficiency in testing, training, and certification standards and specification for the observance by licensees or other persons involved in the cannabis industry. And in consultation with the Medical Council and Pharmacy Council develop guidance in relations to the use of cannabis in respect to the prescribed medical condition and conditions of the individual. The board shall consult with these councils to continually evaluate the benefits and risks of cannabis, distinguishing between therapeutic potency of the cannabis when ingested as opposed to smoking, vaping, and so on. Madam President, the authority will be responsible for facilitating cannabis research for medical or scientific purposes, and where applicable, apply the results of such research to the development of the cannabis industry here in the Bahamas. Madam President, I am happy for our Rastafarian brothers and sisters. They are first of all and foremost Bahamians. They are hardworking. They are our sons and our daughters. And their rights are human rights. We may not all agree with some of their beliefs or traditions, but let us agree to disagree fairly, in peace and harmony. Like the prophet Amos, let us allow justice to roll down like waters and righteousness like an overflowing stream. Madam President, the Rastafarians has paid the legal price, more so than anyone for years. They deserve to live with dignity. They deserve to worship free from harassment. And no matter what one may think, they are all God's children. And they are entitled to lift up their heads to the rising sun and say boldly, I be Bahamian. Madam President, the Constitution say we, all Bahamians, not a select group, but we, the inheritors and successors of this family of islands, recognizing the supremacy of God and believing in the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, do hereby proclaim solemn praise the establishment of a free and democratic sovereign nation founded on spiritual values in which no man, woman, or child shall ever be slave or bondsman to anyone, or their labor exploited, or their lives frustrated by deprivation, and do hereby provide by these articles for the indivisible unity and creation under God of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And therefore, it is not by accident that in this bill there is a provision for the authority, for the Cannabis Authority, to consult with the leadership of that group of Bahamians who happen to be of Rastafarian faith, to develop guidelines for the handling and safe use of cannabis as a religious sacrament. Madam President, one of the things I like about this bill is the fact that the bill directs comprehensive action and oversight. And there is even oversight of the Cannabis Authority by the establishment of the Board of Authority, which shall be the governing body of the Cannabis Authority and shall be responsible for the appointment of staff to the authority, the management of the authority, the development of policies and strategies for the prudent and efficient management of the authority, and finally, to monitor and conduct the assessment and performance of the authority. Madam President, we will all admit that there is no perfect bill. However, we want the Bahamian people to understand and have the confidence that this bill is very careful not to put our country in any compromising position owing to medical marijuana, decriminalization of small amounts of cannabis, sacramental use, or the cannabis industry. Madam President, the bill outlines provision for the suspension or the revocation of license, and all those processes are adequately outlined in the bill. The bill also makes provision for the designation of inspectors for the purpose of verifying compliance or preventing non-compliance with the provision of this act by those licensed to operate under the act. Madam President, Part 7 of the bill deals strictly with offenses and penalties regarding the unlawful possession and supply of cannabis, the unlawful possession of cannabis with the intent to supply, the unlawful supply and or distribution of cannabis, the unlawful import and export of cannabis, prohibition of the cultivation, propagation, harvest, and storage of cannabis unless authorized by this act, unlawful production of cannabis derivatives. Madam President, smoking cannabis in public places, workplace, etc., are all unlawful and punishable by law under this act. Let's look at packaging and labeling. No person who is authorized to sell cannabis, medical or otherwise, shall not do so in a package or a label if there are reasonable grounds to believe that the package or label could be appealing to a minor. No licensee can display cannabis or cannabis accessories unless authorized under this act. And no person authorized to sell cannabis or accessories is to display it in a manner that may result in the cannabis package or label being seen by a minor. All those things that I just mentioned are all punishable by law. Madam President, indeed, we must confess that this bill, though imperfect as it may be, seeks to diversify our economy, create opportunities for ordinary Bahamians, and to regulate the cannabis industry as outlined in our contract with the Bahamian people, the Blueprint for Change. We listened to the public even prior to the general elections, and not until a wide range of consultation and information sharing did the government set out to move this important piece of legislation. Madam President, in closing, I encourage all and sundry to continue to come forth, come in, share your concerns, sit with the relevant authority, such as the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. the Honorable Michael Davil, who, along with other leaders within the government, have done a remarkable job putting this bill together. I mean, this government will continue to drive education, town meetings, and training programs to ensure that the ordinary man and woman, boy and girl, understands the bill and are prepared to reap the benefits thereof. Madam President, I only suggest that we continue to work together to move this country forward, upward, onward, and that we continue to do it together. I support this bill, and may God continue to bless the government, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Madam President. For the wrap-up, please. Assuming we have no other contributors. Thank you. So I want to thank certainly the opposition and our team for very well thought out, reasoned positions on this important compendium of legislation. Clearly, it is of interest to many in this room, and I thank you everybody for their strong debates, and I thank the opposition for allowing the debate in a compendium. Just a couple of points of clarity, Madam President, that I wanted to make based upon the discussion. I note my good friend Senator Ellis raised a couple of points, and she took the position that only pharmacists should dispense cannabis, medical cannabis. We don't have enough pharmacists in this country. In fact, almost half the pharmacists in this country are on work permit. We cannot fill the number of pharmacists required. And the thought was that we should have other avenues of dispensing that would also have the oversight of a pharmacist. And so that's the reasoning behind it. And we still think there's valid reason in our approach. I note that Senator Ellis spoke about the devil's in the details and needing regulations and the like. There are some 11 pieces, I think my last count was, 11 minus 3, there's now 8 pieces of subsidiary legislation on the consultation website. Regulations, rules, orders have all been finalized and concluded. Understanding that this is a significant piece of legislation and all of the supporting subsidiary legislation is required, and we took a lot of time and effort to do that. Now, one thing, we will wait until the authority is constituted, because the authority should have an opportunity to view and opine on the regulations and rules before we sign them into effect. But from our point of view, the final versions are there. They've been online for the last at least 9 months. And we encourage the good senator to read them. Her last point was about labs and analytical testing and how government has struggled, and you've heard me speak in this place about the struggle of government labs. Well, this is exactly the reason why we think that licensed private sector labs and scientific laboratory analytics should be done through the private sector, who have done this and who have the knowledge to do this. We're not saying that the government is going through its lab to inspect every single one. We're going to utilize licensed entities to do that. Senator Ramming made the point about only 5,000 people are affected. I didn't see that number circulated, but I think that that is not correct. He also made a point on, does this allow for expansion if other religions take up other forms of uses of different substances as a sacrament? it has to be an established religion, and there has to be some history behind it to even consider it. Now, if somebody comes and wants to sue over this, I encourage them to do so, and we'll let the courts decide. But I don't think that that's a high-risk issue for us with respect to this. Yes, as I said in my contribution, yeah, there are observations of disagreement from the Rastafarian community. I expect that. When you choose a middle ground, not everybody is going to be happy. We chose a middle ground first step in a regulated environment to address this. We think that that's the proper approach. With respect to expungement issues, just so we know, expungement occurs under the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, which is an existing framework, an existing piece of legislation with existing rules and existing requirements that if you are currently incarcerated, you have to serve your time before you can get your record expunged. Now, I don't think that there are any people with small possession only in jail, if any. But just wanted to clarify that. And then there was the discussion, and we had the demonstration and the props with respect to the point about whether if I possess less than 30 grams, but I do it with the mindset that it's going to be a business opportunity for me, and that I will, if caught, only get a ticket and not be prosecuted. That assumption is sorely mistaken, and I want to be very clear on this. Even if you have less than an ounce, if your actions or your methodology of possession or otherwise demonstrates an intent to supply, then the law will view you as having a forbidden substance with the intent to supply. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you can have 100 joints out of 30 grams. Right? I don't know the metric, but let's assume I can roll 100 joints out of 30 grams, and I'm walking around with 100 joints. Clearly, that is evidence of intent to supply, right? And that's how that will be viewed. Now, the courts will ultimately have to make the decision on that, right? But from a prosecution's point of view and the police's point of view, your actions and how you possess and how much you possess and what you possess are indicative of whether you are simple possession or possession with intent to supply. And that framework is unchanged. Right? That is the current analysis that is done under law, and so that analysis will then continue. So I wanted to be clear on that point, and I told my good friend Mr. Ramming, who I thought was going to treat us all to some honey today on the last sitting, that I would try to clarify that. Senator Henfield, raised a couple of points. He raised the point about us waiting to release the final report. Well, we released it in conjunction with the consultation of the compendium, which was released a year before we even tabled it in the House of Assembly. So I think we gave ample opportunity and notice with respect to the final report. With respect to his position on the Christian Council, I appreciate that he said that he would table it, and he referred to a statement by the Minister of Health in response, and I think it's just appropriate that we table that as well, just so it's on the record. And I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. Initially, we say, we thank the Bahamas Christian Council for sharing their views. To Senator Ramming's point, everybody's entitled to their view, right, regarding the cannabis bill and regulations, just as we were grateful to meet with them about the legislation during our consultation period. Their perspective is valuable, and we share a commitment to the well-being of our communities. We genuinely appreciate their feedback. We also have a belief that Bahamians whose medical conditions cause pain and suffering not relieved by other treatment or medication are deserving of the relief and the medicinal cannabis that it can offer. And so we I think, respectfully address the points through this release raised by the Christian Council. I think it's appropriate that I table it just in response, so there's both positions on the record. But we value the Christian Council's opinions and beliefs, and we will have continued dialogue and consultation surrounding this compendium and other pieces of legislation that will come about. So, Madam President, I hereby table our response. And the last point I want to address that Minister Henfield raised was he spoke about education and support for the youth, and I think it was around potential addiction and otherwise. And I just want to advise the minister that there is an education requirement within in legislation. The Cannabis Authority has the function, I quote, to provide for the distribution of education materials and the conduct of training programs in relation to the cannabis industry and the development and use of cannabis. In Clause 12, that's Clause 6. In Clause 12, the minister himself has the responsibility of setting aside license fees collected by the authority so he can use the license fees paid by the licensees, set it aside for the purpose of strengthening the capacity and programs of the Bahamas National Drug Council, including public education programs to discourage the recreational use or abuse of cannabis by minors, persons with mental disorders, pregnant women, and other vulnerable groups. And we also have the power to set aside license fees for the strengthening of the Bahamas Mental Health Institution and services. So we've thought about it, we've incorporated it into legislation and actually allowed for a funding mechanism to address it, because we think, like you do, that it's a very important issue. And with those points, Madam President, I so move for second reading of the Cannabis Bill 2024, which is a bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority, and the compendium of bills that come along with it. Do I need to read each one now? Okay.
But just you want 1 minute. Senator Ruben Raming.
I just stand to lay the document quoted in my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Raming. Senator Ryan Pinder. Right. Yeah. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for second reading of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment and licensing of cannabis dispensaries. The Pharmacy Amendment Bill 2024.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of licensing of cannabis dispensaries. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of and licensing of cannabis dispensaries.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drug Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drugs Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drugs Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. As part of the compendium, we've agreed as well, although we did not speak too much on it. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and tabled. A bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order bill be read for a second time and tabled.
A bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters.
For the second reading of bills. For the second reading of bills.
Yes. I rise, Madam President, to debate, and I thank the opposition as a compendium. The series of bills that we call the intellectual property bills. They would include the patent bill 2024, the trademark bill 2024, the copyright bill 2024, the registrar of records bill 2024, registrar of companies bill 2024, and the law reform and revision amendment bill 2024. And without objection, we will debate these as a compendium. Madam President, I rise again to move second reading of the listed bills with the concurrence of the opposition, and in this case, as the intellectual property compendium.
Just 1 minute, please. Just want to ensure that we have concurrence of the opposition for these bills. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hanfield.
Second. No.
Madam President, this is the first phase of our intellectual property legislative reform. We anticipate a second phase of our legislative reform to occur before the end of the year, after we've established a new intellectual property office and have established the protocols and suitable operations to implement in a phased approach. Madam President, a key pillar of the government's mandate and legislative agenda, as stated in our 2023 speech from the throne, is the strengthening of intellectual property rights of Bahamians, and particularly for those operating in the orange and creative economies of the Bahamas. What we debate today sets the stage for fundamental reform in intellectual property protections in the Bahamas, as well as the reform of the Registrar General's Department, which is responsible for intellectual property registrations, but also has the responsibility for the company registry and the civil registry, which is the registry for marriages, births, deaths, deeds, and documents. Madam President, prior to the Bahamas joining the CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, and that's the trade agreement which we are party to with the European Union, and this was entered into in October of 2008, little efforts had been made to aid the creatives in the country in participating in a modern global trading environment. A recent report by Angus Chu of University of Macau has established a direct causal link and positive relationship between stronger levels of intellectual property protection and innovation. So what they are saying is, if you have the suitable intellectual property protections, that encourages innovation within your country. And it's a natural fit, because the more you innovate, the more you want to be confident that your innovations, whether that be inventions or creative products or creative designs, are protected for your benefit. Recognizing the relationship between intellectual property and development, countries in the global south have begun to capitalize on this tool to aid development in their own countries. In a recent forum, Mr. Darren Tang, who's the Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization, otherwise known as WIPO, and WIPO is the arm of the United Nations with portfolio of intellectual property. Mr. Tang reported that nearly 80% of all new patent and copyright applications in recent years have emerged from Latin America, Asia, and Africa, the global south. 80% of new applications originate from Latin America, Asia, and Africa. This implies that there is significant value being extracted from the creative economy of the developing world, including the Bahamas. This is where the creative economies are now thriving, and the creativity is becoming a fundamental part of the development of those countries. These countries, developing countries in the global south. Madam President, the plain truth is that when it comes to providing the necessary intellectual property protection for our people to protect their creations and their business innovations, and the creation of a proper platform for domestic and international protection of these assets, the Bahamas has been negligent in keeping up with international standards to provide you, the general Bahamian public, with adequate opportunities for their economic growth and development from their creativity. That's a fact. We have all let you down. Our laws are inadequate. Our registration system is clunky, slow, and ineffective. And we are not party to the necessary international conventions to ensure international protections to Bahamians who would want to protect their intellectual property globally. As mentioned, the intellectual property application procedure is not efficient, nor is it easy or progressive. The process is managed by the Intellectual Property Division of the Registrar General. The application process is a manual process by submitting the relevant application and must wait for its manual review and approval. This is a burdensome process and creates unnecessary delays which have a material effect on the ability of Bahamians to timely seek protection and to have their intellectual property published for notice of its protection. Madam President, I think it important to give the history of our attempts at IP reform in the Bahamas. As part of past WTO accession efforts, a review of local intellectual property legislation for conformity with multilateral and bilateral trade and treaty provisions was conducted in June of 2012, where several weaknesses in domestic IP legislation were identified. We have been at this exercise for 13 years. As a result of this review, and in an effort to strengthen our intellectual property framework in the Bahamas, the following legislation was passed in the Bahamas Parliament, but it was never brought into force. And to Minister Ellis's point, it was never brought into force largely due to the lack of regulations to guide the implementation of the primary legislation. The legislation included, and listen to this, Copyright Amendment Act 2015, 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. False Trade Descriptions Act of 2015, Geographical Indications Act of 2015, Integrated Circuits Act of 2015, the Patent Act of 2015, and the Trademark Act of 2015. These were all passed by the Parliament of the Bahamas in 2015. Yet no effort was done to actually bring them into force in a timely fashion. It was 3 years later in 2018 where a second attempt was made to expand and enhance the protection of intellectual property in the Bahamas. The necessary regulations to support the 2015 legislation were prepared, along with new legislation and amendments on the already passed IP legislation. The new primary and secondary legislation were prepared in an attempt to continue the expansion of intellectual property protection for Bahamian entrepreneurs and modernize the not so yet enacted primary legislation. We therefore then had the Copyright Amendment Bill of 2018, the Copyright Amendment Regulations of 2018, Geographic Indication Regulations of 2018, Integrated Circuits Regulation of 2018, Protection of New Plant Varieties Bill 2018, and Patent Regulations 2018, Trademark Amendment Bill 2018, Trademark Amendment Regulations 2018. So that compendium was now prepared in 2018. So we had 2012 was the first attempt, then 2015 we had bills done but no regulations. Now 2018 we're ready to go off to the races, right? But no policy progress was made to advance intellectual property reform after this 2018 review. The legislation and the regulations were never put forward for consideration by the prior administration. When the creative industry and the orange economy looks to who actually fulfills its promises through action, they will know it's this New Day government led by Philip Brave Davis, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, who speaks through action. The 2018 versions needed further reform in order to be compliant with international standards and various international conventions that we would want to enter into to ensure that there's global protection. We have worked hard with specialized consultants, law reform, WIPO and their advice, as well as the European Union and CARIFORUM, so it's been a multi-agency approach. We've also worked very hard with the creative industries of the Bahamas and the Intellectual Property Committee of the Bar Association to complete these first round of bills. We have also prepared the regulations required for their implementation, so we will not find ourselves, as in prior years, with bills and no regulations. Today we passed the Patent Bill of 2024, the Trademark Bill of 2024, and the Copyright Bill of 2024. These three pieces are the foundation of the intellectual property reform. As mentioned, there will be a second phase of legislation to come after we establish the IP office. We look to reform the entire process to make the application procedure easy, straightforward, and efficient, and to ensure timely protection of the intellectual property rights of Bahamians and those who want to register in the Bahamas. With the passing of our legislative reforms, we will be in a position to operationalize an online intellectual property portal that will facilitate applications and approvals of intellectual property protections entirely online. This will allow clear, timely, and transparent review and approval of the process. The platform will be supported by WIPO so that all the intellectual property rights registered here will be respected worldwide. The Patent Bill of 2024, Madam President, paves the way for us to create a standalone intellectual property office within the Office of the Attorney General. We believe that the administration of intellectual property rights requires a focused and dedicated intellectual property office. Once we have implemented our reforms, we will look to split the functions of administering intellectual property rights in the Bahamas from where it currently lies, which is the Registrar General Department, and have a standalone dedicated IP office. This is the internationally recognized best practice and would provide the necessary focus on what our government believes is fundamental to Bahamian economic empowerment, especially in the creative and orange economies. Now, Trinidad did this a number of years ago. They were antiquated, had an antiquated system, and they did this. They passed legislation, and then they moved the IP office out into the Office of the Attorney General with a standalone function. And they have led the way in the Caribbean region from that point until today of maximizing opportunities through their creative industries. worldwide and regionally. And we hope to be able to mimic that. They have, for instance, leveraged their carnival through intellectual property protections to maximize benefit for Trinidadians. I think it important to highlight a project that we are undertaking in cooperation with WIPO, and that's IP in Junkanoo. Our national festival, Junkanoo, is defined by colorful, handmade costumes and unique music based in cowbells, goatskin drums, and horns. The sound is unique and the costumes are vibrant. Unfortunately, due to a juvenile intellectual property framework and a lack of knowledge generally about IP protections, this Bahamian-made authentic production is being copied in recordings around the world with no compensation payable to the creators in the Bahamas. Junkanoo is an important component of our tourist product, with productions at different scales and different sizes conducted year-round throughout the archipelago. Junkanoo groups jump on planes and travel to resorts all through our archipelago to give a performance of their creativity. IP protection should create the economic security for our indigenous creative visual and musical production, Junkanoo. WIPO has agreed to work with us on a special project for Junkanoo to bring awareness and design protected rights in Junkanoo, which will help for economic exploitation of all the hard work and the creativity that thousands of Bahamians give to our national treasure. WIPO will be here in September, after the establishment of the Intellectual Property Office, to launch our program of IP and Junkanoo. And we have made a special request of WIPO. We would like the consultant, they gave us a choice of consultants. We said, we want the one from Trinidad, who was in the Registrar General's office when they created the new IP office, and who had specific input on how they protected carnival and other elements of their indigenous creative industries. To come and help us do the same, because they've been through it. She understands what to do. We will have more details to come on this, but we are excited about this special project, which will expand opportunities for thousands of Bahamians involved in our festival, Junkanoo. Madam President, we will not only pass legislation, we will also join the necessary international conventions to ensure the protection of the above elements of intellectual property internationally. We need to have a global reach in our IP protections. That's the whole purpose of this. We will be joining the necessary conventions for international protection in a phased approach so we can implement the conventions effectively. We want to do this right, and we will do it through phases. At the end of the process, we look forward to joining up to 11 new intellectual property international conventions and treaties to benefit those who want to register for protection in the Bahamas. Madam President, along with the fundamental reforms of our intellectual property regime, including the creation of a dedicated intellectual property office, we look to reform the Registrar General's Department. And the Registrar of Records and Registrar of Companies bills we debate today are intended to set the legislative framework to do just this. The responsibilities and the scope of the Registrar General's Department have grown over time and become more and more complex. This has not only put a strain on the infrastructure of the office, but also on the actual operations of the Registrar General's Department. It is time that we look at new facilities and a new paradigm on delivering the vast scope of services that the industry and Bahamians at large demand from the Registrar General. As you would know, we've been working on renovations for new facilities in the Financial Center to be able to give the registrar and the consumers the facilities that are deserving. I had hoped we would have moved into the facilities already. However, impediments beyond my control, such as supply chain issues, have caused a delay. I am pleased to advise that we are on schedule now to move into our new state-of-the-art facilities by the end of this month. We are concluding the last parts of the renovations, installing furniture, and necessary IT cabling. We will then move from where we are on 50 Shirley Street across the street to new state-of-the-art facilities in the financial center, right across the Shirley Street. These new facilities will have designated spaces for the management of the company side of the registry, as well as the civil side of the registry. We also look at the operations of the Registrar General's Department and ask ourselves if in today's world, with all that is demanded of the Registrar General in the scope of her activities, is the current framework appropriate for its responsibilities, but also is our method of operations conducive for the consumer of its services? I personally don't think that the current framework of the Registrar General's Department allows for this. We need to change the way in which we operate. And I want to speak a bit about our vision for the Registrar General's Department. With the volume of responsibility and services we are looking at, splitting up the Registrar General Department into different functions with different registrars and different teams. We will establish in law, and we do that today, we establish in law 3 different registrars and registry teams out of a single operation that we have now. We will have a registrar of companies, we will have a registrar of records, and we will have a registrar of intellectual property. We will likewise have teams in each of these 3 registries, and we will invest in their professional development and qualifications for these specific areas. So we will train teams to be experts in companies areas, in the civil side areas, and the intellectual property areas. We think this is the right approach. This is important for the services that the consumers and Bahamians at large expect and demand, especially those in the industry on behalf of their clients. The member for St. Anne's in that other place, as usual, couldn't be more wrong when he thinks that this will cause additional bottlenecks. This reorganization plan will create the expertise, the efficiencies, and the synergies to dramatically improve services across all areas. We firmly believe that. The reorganization plan will be complemented by fundamental technological upgrades. We know that in today's world, and with the constant increasing demand on the Registrar General's Department, technology is a necessity. And having an electronic interface with clients is vital, not only for the industry to do their job, but for the consumers at large to be able to get what they want done effectively and efficiently. We intend that each of the registrars will have a new state-of-the-art digital platform to cause for the services that they offer to operate better. This month, we launched the new Corporate Administrative Registration Services. We call it CARS. CARS is a fully digital corporate registry platform that allows the user to incorporate new companies, file all your corporate documents, pay your annual fees, obtain certified copies of corporate documents, obtain certificates of good standing, all from the comfort of your home or your office. This has been launched this month. We have registered agents and law firms signing up and participating, and the feedback and response has been excellent. Excellent. Gone are the days of having to walk down and see if your certificate of good standing is ready. It is processed online. You're given a QR code on the actual certificate of good standing that you can print out, You could scan that QR code and get an authentication number to authenticate the validity of the certificate of good standing. The process and the platform is exceptional. This is the culmination of years of work and development, data integrity projects, and data migration. Because to launch this service, you have to have your data secure, migrated, and integrated, because data is what these things are all about. And the integrity of the data is important. We truly believe that this will turn the status quo upside down when it comes to the company registry of the country. Madam President, I know you yourself would appreciate this in your professional life, this evolution. The Registrar of Records will likewise have a new online portal developed for its management of births, deaths, marriages, and deeds and documents. So you'll be able to get a certified copy of a marriage certificate online with the same QR code authentication without having to go down and wait in long lines. And this is being designed by the same developer that did the company platform, so they could all be integrated, the customer support is integrated, and the platforms will work autonomously but have the same support mechanism. So you have to submit the physical hard documents, right? But that's it, right? And in fact, we're working on some modifications to the law and some MOUs, for instance, with hospitals, where we will put a representative with a computer terminal in the hospital for birth registrations. So we will look, the goal is to process birth registrations right there while they're in the hospital, right? And have that processed and then uploaded into the system. So if then you need to go get certified copies of your birth certificates and birth registrations, you can do that part online, because we've already done the registration in person at the hospital. So we're working on that process. I don't have an official announcement on that, but just so you would know what we're also trying to do. No more 3-day. Well, that it's a fraud prevention mechanism as well as an ease of convenience mechanism, right? We look to launch the new Registry of Records portal by the end of this year for new services. We will have a data migration project that continues on a rolling basis. The new Lifecycle online portal. Likewise, the new Registrar of Intellectual Property will have a new purpose-built online portal that we hope will provide a basis for the development of our orange economy and the success of our intellectual property registry. Providing acceptable service in today's environment demands investment in technological platforms. And we're doing this to deliver exceptional service to our customers across all registries. Madam President, I would like to foreshadow some anticipated legislative reforms. We have released for public consultation the long-anticipated Land Adjudication Bill and Land Registration Bill. These two pieces of legislation will establish the framework for registered land and create a land registry run by a standalone land registrar. These are the predicates for land registration in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, something administrations have been talking about and studying for decades. Decades. We will get it done. The public consultation and the agreements and all the background information on land reform and land registration can be found at bahamaslandreform.gov.bs. We have a consultation website similar to what we did for IP, similar to what we did for cannabis. We now have one for land reform. We look to pass this legislation in the fall, and by the beginning of 2025, we look to have active land adjudication panels processing title to be registered on a newly established land registry. So our goal is to start that process in 2025. Yes? Yes? That's 4 registries with 4 distinct areas under their supervision, creating expertise and the efficiencies to deliver the service. Madam President, but that's not all. In the second phase of land reform, we will include a new law of property bill and a new planning and subdivision bill to further advance the ease of land transactions in the Bahamas. This is fundamental to bringing the cost of land transactions down, increasing the efficiencies and time for completion of a transaction, and bringing clarity to disputed title in the Bahamas. Now, my good colleague and good friend over here, Senator Pickstock, he's a conveyancing lawyer.
When he going?
But we serve the Bahamian people.
When he going?
We serve the Bahamian people. And we will do what is necessary to fix the problems of yesteryear and deliver the service and reliability that's important. Madam President, imagine an adjudication panel that finally solves and adjudicates all the clouded title that exists in the Bahamas and puts it on a register. Because remember, when it goes on that land register, it is deemed good title. It's already been adjudicated and determined to be good title. And once it goes on that land registry, no more 30-year roots of title studies and opinions and, oh, somebody forgot to probate this and the cloud and the gaps. All that will be gone.
Is it guaranteed?
Gone. Guaranteed good title if it makes it on the land registry. And that's why we formulate these adjudication panels of private sector experts, not government experts, private sector lawyers and surveyors. We get all the technical components in on that adjudication panel, and title by title, property by property, they adjudicate the title. Now, some title's going to be easy, right? Especially new developments. New developments will be easy if it's in the last 12 years since the planning and subdivision bill. Established communities will be easy. Nassau generally, for the most part, except for certain parts, will be able to be done. Freeport should be able to be done like that, right? The Family Islands will have a little bit more challenges. We understand the title issues and the property issues in the Family Islands. But we will solve this problem. And frankly, the adjudication panels will be running concurrently with the current system for a couple of years, at least, to be able to build and develop the registry. We would hope this is a process that would receive, when we come to debate this, the full and unconditional support of the opposition, Madam President. So, Madam President, as I conclude, intellectual property reform is a requirement in order to leverage the creativeness and the orange economy of the Bahamas. Without it, we will never reach our potential. Never reach our potential. We must undertake the reform in a comprehensive, dedicated, and informed manner, and we are fulfilling this commitment to the Bahamian people. I also want to recognize that for many years, the Registrar General Department has had certain limitations and has needed investment and a new direction. We have been working hard to address these concerns and to put in place the proper situation and scenario to do it. We recognize that our changes and reorganization must be done in a way that allows Bahamians and users to maximize their experience while being attentive to the demands of the clients. I want everybody to know that our commitment to them is not lost on us. And we will create the institutions to deliver better services in this country. Madam President, before I sit down, I just want to say a few words on the Law Reform and Revision Amendment Bill. Law Reform and Revision have 3 distinct functions. The institution, which is under the Office of the Attorney General, has 3 distinct functions in our legislative process. We're all legislators here. We have the drafting division, and the drafting division drafts the day-to-day bills and amendments, the budget that we're all used to, that come before us. We have a reform division made up generally of former judges and those who would be otherwise qualified to be a judge that handle major reform projects of the government. So for instance, the cannabis compendium we debated this morning, that was a reform initiative led by Dame Anita Allen, Commissioner of Law Reform. And she led that process because that's a major reform element dealing, as you would have seen, with a lot of different pieces of legislation and benchmarking and studies and the like. The work on nationality, it was a reform project. Some reform projects we're working on now, we brought on some new commissioners. Garvin Gaskins, for example, the former Director of Public Prosecution, is a Commissioner of Law Reform. And we're using his criminal law expertise to look at a full overhaul of our penal code. Our penal code is from 1927. 1927, that's where the penal code in its state today originates from. Certainly there's amendments along the way, deletions, additions, and it's actually quite messy if you try to follow it. We're looking at a full review of our penal code in today's modern environment, looking at other areas, other benchmarks, and so that's a massive reform project that he's working on. We welcome, and the subject of this amendment is to allow for a fourth commissioner. We welcome Sir Michael Barnett as a Commissioner of Law Reform, former President of the Court of Appeal, former Chief Justice, former senior partner at Graham Thompson, as a commissioner. His particular interest is interesting. He's looking at evidentiary rules in trials and whether we can reform the way we look at evidentiary rules. So the rule of hearsay, for example, the statute of limitations, right? Confessions. These are all elements of evidence within a criminal trial that we're looking at holistically to see if we can, while maintaining the fairness of trial and due process, streamline the process of trials from a holistic evidentiary point of view. That's an exciting reform project, but that is multifaceted. And so that's a reform project he is taking on. Madam President, the third area of law reform and revision that I would like to mention, and for the first time in the history of the Bahamas, we have appointed a Commissioner of Revision. And that would be Tina Roy, longtime legislative drafter and Director of Law Reform. What revision is, it's a periodic review of all of your legislation with a mindset to consolidate and reissue bills so they're all consolidated, but also take a holistic approach at your entire legislative regime, because some laws may be outdated, some laws may not need to be on the books, and to clean that up. Historically, we've never had a focused revision section, and that's why our laws are so choppy. Amendments, I mean, you go through the value-added tax bill and amendments, it's a disaster. You have amendments that add things, amendments that delete things that were added, amendments that were added again, and to follow it is a nightmare. We look to issue a reprint, we call it, because it's not a revised edition. Revised edition is the whole compendium. A reprint of the value-added tax legislation this year that will be a full, certified, consolidated element of that. So our revision exercise is underway, where we're looking at a comprehensive approach. We just updated laws online 18 months ago or so. That was updated with the 2017 revision exercise. That tells you how gappy our revision exercises in this country have been with respect to legislation, right? We want this to be a continuous process of revision, to have clean laws, so people can understand the laws that apply to them. So lawyers aren't making mistakes advising their clients, because it's the clients that are put in jeopardy. Our next revision exercise for reprints are the criminal matters, criminal laws, because we want to ensure that, especially when it comes to persons' due process and their personal rights, that the clause are clear and its application is clear. And so for the first time, we've appointed a commissioner of revision, and we've given her a dedicated team. And interesting enough, Madam President, it's not a dedicated team of lawyers. We have, for instance, a former English teacher. We have people who have excelled in grammar in school, because this is a reading, comprehension, and writing exercise. And you don't necessarily need lawyers to do it. In fact, I could tell you that in some instances, lawyers wouldn't be good at that job. They wouldn't be good at that job. And so we have institutionalized the revision side of law reform. We are in the process of finalizing a new acting director of law reform and revision that will oversee the drafting component that I talked about, to bring structure to that. We are putting the reform team for the first time together in a separate location for major reform projects, and assigning 2 drafters and a researcher to that reform team, so they have the support to do proper reform exercises. And so we're taking a new approach to law reform and revision, compartmentalizing different areas and then giving the support. In fact, as I conclude, Madam President, I want to congratulate the new legislative drafters of the Office of the Attorney General, who have just been awarded their LLM in legislative drafting. The government has taken an approach, this government has taken an approach, that any lawyer who desires to be a legislative drafter, we will pay for them to go do their LLM. It is a master's in drafting, master's in law. We have just had 7 graduates. 3 graduated with straight A distinctions. Tremendously smart individuals. And so that is a policy decision with the support from my good friend Senator Halkitis, who has provided the funding, because you have to invest. We pay full tuition for these people. Full tuition. I think tuition is approaching $17,000, $18,000 for this program. And we pay for it in full, right? To build our capacity in legislative drafting, because we have an aggressive agenda, and any government that's here for the day has to produce legislation, produce it timely, produce it well with trained drafters, which is a very significant and specialized area. So with those few words, Madam President, I want to thank you for the time. I thought it was needed to help explain what we're doing. But I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to the grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patent Act of 2015, and to provide it for connected matters, and with all the compendium of bills we debated today, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder. Is there a seconder?
Second.
The chair recognizes the Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Yes. Madam President, we could very well go with that second, but thank you for recognizing me, Madam President. I wanted to say just a few words about on the intellectual property bills, which comprise the patent bill, the copyright bill, and the trademarks bill in 2024. Madam President, intellectual property encompassing patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets plays a pivotal role in fostering innovation and creativity. It provides a legal framework that enables creators and inventors to protect their inventions and creations, thereby incentivizing further innovation. This cycle of innovation and protection is a key driver of economic growth and development. By protecting the rights of creators and inventors, IP laws encourage innovation and entrepreneurship, which are crucial for sustained economic growth.
Mr. Alcides, your mic.
Oh, what? Gotta start all over? Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Madam President. As I said, I wanted to rise just to make a few comments on this compendium of intellectual property bills. And I began by saying, Madam President, that intellectual property, encompassing patents, trademarks, and copyrights, and trade secrets, plays a pivotal role in fostering innovation and creativity. These laws provide the legal framework that enables creators and inventors to protect their inventions and creation, thereby incentivizing further innovation. This cycle of innovation and protection is a key driver of economic growth and development. By protecting the rights of creators and inventors, IP laws encourage innovation and entrepreneurship, which are crucial for sustained economic growth. Moreover, intellectual property can help create new jobs and industries, contributing to full and productive employment, particularly among women and young people. It is because of this catalytic role of intellectual property to drive economic development that the government has prioritized strengthening the legislative and institutional framework. And these bills, Madam President, are the product of widespread consultation. The government's guiding policies listed in our Blueprint for Change highlight the recognition that our economy requires the creation of a new economic model for creatives and the orange economy in the Bahamas. It was likewise recognized that we must provide a legal and practical framework to incentivize creatives to obtain intellectual property protections for their creations that will empower them to negotiate contracts with international distribution platforms. Madam President, our country is a nation with immense potential and a vibrant people. However, like many small island developing countries, it faces its own unique set of challenges. These include economic uncertainty, trade tensions, high public debt, and a reliance on importing the majority of what we consume. But within these challenges, Madam President, lie great opportunities. Opportunities to foster sustainable growth, to promote better work opportunities, and to build a resilient and diverse economy. And sustainable, inclusive economic growth is not just an imaginary ideal. It is a necessity, and it ensures that the benefits of economic progress are shared equitably, leading to improved living standards, reduced poverty, and a sense of shared prosperity. It fosters innovation, encourages entrepreneurship, and creates a conducive environment for business to thrive. Our Blueprint for Change 10-point plan speaks to Bahamian empowerment, and steps have already been taken to address this. Just last year, the Ministry of Economic Affairs formally launched the National Trade Policy, which is a key component of a wider development strategy to diversify the economy, empower Bahamian businesses domestically and internationally, and lower the trade deficit. The National Trade Policy is built on 4 pillars: reducing imports, expanding exports, diversifying exports, and strengthening domestic competitiveness. Key areas that are being targeted by the government, such as niche agricultural and fisheries products, uniquely Bahamian crafts, food and goods, green, blue, and orange economy products and services will all benefit from this policy. And so, Madam President, to fully leverage the potential of intellectual property, we need to adopt a balanced and nuanced approach to IP rights and strive to create an IP system that not only protects inventors and creators, but also promotes the sharing of knowledge and technology. This will require cooperation and dialogue, as well as the involvement of various stakeholders, including the government, business, and civil society. And so, Madam President, in conclusion, intellectual property, when managed effectively, can be a powerful tool for economic growth and sustainable development. It requires concerted efforts, innovative solutions, and a commitment to social justice. But the rewards are worth the effort, for it's not just about economic numbers, it is indeed about people. Madam President, it's about building a Bahamas where every citizen can partake in its full growth story and actualize all of their abilities through their creative talents. Madam President, I second the bill.
Right. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters. As many, Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, this, what I can only call mammoth compendium, is a clear justification for one of the bills in the compendium, and that is our need for law reform is ongoing. Many of our acts need to be modernized. The world is changing, evolving, and too many pieces of our legislation reckon to a time long ago. We need more hands on deck and the Law Reform Commission needs to be fully resourced. I have a matter, and the statute law in that area is out of date and doesn't reflect the ease in which people can now seek relief in other jurisdictions. But there are many, 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 many pieces of legislation in the Bahamas that need to be modernized. I will call and continue to call for a modernization of divorce legislation and our legislation on the access and maintenance, custody, adoption, and guardianship of children. If we truly believe that families are the bedrock of our community, then we must put in place the tools they need to be healthy, like not making it difficult for spouses to leave toxic relationships. Adoptions should not be an incomprehensible maze, and fathers need unambiguous statutory protection to enshrine their equal rights and responsibilities to their children. The repeal and replacement of the Trademark Act, the Copyright Act, and the Patent Act is long overdue and is not in dispute. We are a small nation playing catch-up. We are trying to do in one jump, which many jurisdictions took years to accomplish. I have reviewed the legislation and I intend to go through each. I was extremely pleased to hear about the special Junkanoo trademark project because the definition of trademark in the bill is very good. But the bill does not seem to contain the provisions for registering a sound mark, which is a trademark. How do we register a sound? Will the IP office accept recordings or a graphic representation? Trademarks have evolved to be more than just graphics or sounds. They're holograms and scents and packaging. There are no provisions in the Act thus far that allows the IP office to register them. As I said this morning, with all things, the devil is in the details. When it comes to the execution and implementation of legislation, that's when things get mucked up. The orange economy needs to be educated on how and where they can file and protect their trademarks. These applications are very technical and require persons with expertise in these areas. We must not oversimplify it or oversell it for headlines. We must put our money where our mouth is. There are countless of knockoffs sold throughout this country, and we need to give trademark holders comprehensive tools to protect their marks. At this point, Madam President, I want to thank Ms. Roger Oughton, counsel and attorney, who graciously discussed these bills with me. Roger is a specialist attorney in the area, boldly going where others have been reluctant to go. When we look at intellectual property, there are two rights that must be protected: the economic right to receive compensation for your idea, and the moral right to say, that's mine, I did that. The Copyright Bill fails to set out what the Infringement Act is for a sound recording, and it further fails to protect the rights and persons who contributed to that recording. Right now, the bill only offers some protection to the person that publishes, produces, or compiles the recording, but it doesn't offer protection to the writer, the producer, the person playing the drums, or the vocalist. Artists need to be educated and given proper advice on how to own and protect their recordings. This is not a new issue. Two superstars come to mind: Taylor Swift and Prince. Taylor Swift, who is a blonde pop icon, had an infamous battle with her record label. She owned none of the master recordings of her earlier songs. So in order to own them, after she separated from her label, she had to re-record her first two albums. So when you look at her albums, they say in brackets behind Taylor's version. Prince, on the other hand, owned all of the master recordings of his songs. But since he died without an heir, there is a dispute as to who receives the benefit of the royalties that continue to be generated after his premature death. Artists need to know that an exclusive license means that they have given up all their rights to their work to someone else. I would recommend adding the definition of license to the bill to emphasize the fact that an exclusive license is not still they're talking about copyright, is not the only type of license available. But Madam President, it is the provisions of the patent bill which to me require a return visit to the Law Reform Commission. Section 11 of the bill lists the types of innovations that cannot be patented. And let's be clear, patents are innovations. You have to show that you are doing something new, something novel. Diagnostic, therapeutic, and surgical methods, according to this bill, cannot be patented. We have just debated what has been collectively known as the stem cell bill. If a doctor in the Bahamas invents new, cutting-edge, paradigm-shifting procedure, they will not be able to patent that procedure in the Bahamas to protect their right to be credited for their innovation. New uses for known substances will not be able to be patented under this bill. We just debated the cannabis compendium. If a doctor in the Bahamas discovers a new use for cannabis, maybe to treat a medical condition, they will not be able to patent it in the Bahamas. This is inconsistent with laws in other jurisdictions. This bill, amongst other things, moves to make the Bahamas a contracting party to the Patent Corporation Treaty, and that's just an international treaty. As a contracting party, we'll be bound to recognize and give priority to patents granted under that treaty. We would have to give priority to patents in areas where our local innovators cannot get the benefit of a patent under our local law. There are stem cell procedures that have been born and bred in the Bahamas that have to be internationally patented under the PCT in order to possibly be recognized in the Bahamas. This needs to be revisited. We must promote, encourage, and protect innovation. This compendium also includes the Registrar of Records Bill and the Registrar of Companies Bill. Much has changed since the Office of the Registrar General was created. The economic and social activity of the Bahamas has boomed post-independence. It is therefore necessary to create separate registrars to deal with records and companies. Madam President, I submit, however, given the implications of the IP bills and the treaty obligations that stem from them, we will receive a higher volume of trademark, copyright, and patent applications. And I was pleased to hear that the Attorney General said that we will have a separate registrar to oversee the IP office and a team that will support them with those applications so that we can meet our international obligations. Because we are expected to be as efficient as every other signatory to the treaties which we will be signing as a result of this compendium. Madam President, I'm not like the Attorney General, so I'm going to be shorter. As I close, I want to offer my well wishes to all Bahamian athletes going to Paris for the Olympics. And I'd also like to offer congratulations to all persons representing the Bahamas in international competition anywhere. Madam President, it is 242 to the world, all day, every day.
Thank you, Senator, the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. As many, Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few points on the wrap-up. I want to thank the cooperation of the Senate on these important pieces of legislation. And the debate we had today, and some of the points raised by Senator Michael Ellis on the compendium of bills. I think the first point you made was with respect to the trademark bill regarding sound. I think that's a misinterpretation. If you would read, a trademark means, in the first instance, a sign. Right, a sign. Now, a sign means, and it has a definition, but it means a sound.
I didn't cover it.
So it would be included in the definition of trademark.
It is included in the definition. The
Thank
question
you.
is just, the practicality. How are we registering it? How are we documenting it with the office?
No, that's a fair point. And as we roll out the digital platform by WIPO, who clearly supports trademarking sounds as part of their protection, that will be a component within the actual mechanics of doing it. Not that it's missing; it's a mechanical function. Yeah. Okay, okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I misinterpreted that. I think your second point had to do with copyrights and particularly contributions to collective works. I think if you look at Section 35 of the Copyright Bill, it specifically addresses notice of copyright contributions to collective works. And it says a separate contribution to a collective work may bear its own notice of copyright, as provided for in the relevant sections. Right? And so the bill does contemplate contributions to collective works. Now, we could certainly clarify the point further in the regulations, which we'll look to do, and the regulations are on the consultation website as well. So when we do these big compendiums, you know, and these technical bills, we choose to do them with regulations. And so all of the regulation, that's why it takes some time to do these things. Because the regulations are out there for you to review with respect to your input on them, and they continue to be subject to your review of those. I think the third point, you had some comments on the Patent Act and exclusions, and at least with respect to your comparison or your example of cannabis strains, I think you said, on its protection. We have a separate piece of legislation coming in phase 2 regarding new plant varieties, which gives its own protective framework for the agribusiness section and the agri-research section for new plant varieties, because we think that is a significant component of our collective IP envelope. The reason we're doing this is in phases is because we want, these are the 3 primary pieces that generally have widespread protection uses. We want to put these in place, get the IP office up and running, get these integrated, and then come back with the bills. If you were on the consultation website, you would see the integrated circuits bill, the new plant varieties bill, geographic indications bill. All of those are present for consultation with their associate regulations. So they're out there. They're completed. We're doing a final review, but we thought to be able to do it in phases, and so we will have necessary protective mechanisms in place for those. So with that, Madam President, on which one? We'll look at that. We'll look at that. I didn't. We'll look at that piece. We'll look at that piece. Her question was on the elements of new surgical techniques, and so we'll take that under advisement. So I move, Madam President, for the second reading of a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to the granted administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act of 2015, and to provide for connected matters. Yeah, I can do them.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time.
A bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015 and to provide for connected matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and tabled. A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015 and to provide for connected matters.
For the second reading of bills,
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies.
For the second reading of bills,
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a Registrar of Records and for other purposes.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a Registrar of Records and for other purposes. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a Registrar of Records and for other purposes.
For the second reading of bills,
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act 2023. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act 2023.
For the second reading of bills,
Are there none, Madam President?
Committee of the Whole.
Yes, Madam President, I move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with Senator Darren Pickstock in the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with Senator Darren Pickstock in the chair and as chairman of the committee of the whole. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill, a bill for an act to regulate the issuance, sale, and trade of digital assets in or from within the Bahamas, and to repeal and replace the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2020. I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 87 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 87 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 87 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to update and modernize the law relating to the regulation of securities exchanges and the securities industry, to expand and enhance the powers of the Securities Commission, to repeal the Securities Industries Act, Chapter 363, and for connected matters, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that clauses 2 through 213 of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved. It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 213 be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 213 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move now that the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth schedules to the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses, that the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth schedules of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Clauses, the motion is agreed. Clauses, the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth schedules of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to provide for the membership of the Bahamas as a shareholder country in the Corporación Andina de Fomento and for purposes connected thereto, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that clauses 2 through 7 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 7 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 7 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the schedule to the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the schedule to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The schedule to the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect now to a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 5 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 5 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 5 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now move to a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Authority Bahamas Act. I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that now that clauses 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 6 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to establish a public-private partnership between the Government of the Bahamas and the LJM Maritime Academy to facilitate the progression of economic growth and national development of the maritime sector in the Bahamas, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that clauses 2 through 13 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 13 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 13 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 82 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 82 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 82 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that the first, second, third, and fourth schedule of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the first, second, third, and fourth schedules of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The first, second, third, and fourth schedules of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 27 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 27 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 27 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now move to a bill for an act to provide for the establishment and licensing of cannabis dispensaries. I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 6 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I now move to a bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drugs Act. I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 9 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 9 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 9 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, with respect to a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework related to grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move now that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 106 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 106 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 106 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 to 162 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 162 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 162 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 95 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 95 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 95 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the first, second, and third schedules of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the first, second, and third schedules of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The first, second, and third schedules of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we now move to a bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies, and I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 9 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 9 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 9 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the schedule to the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the schedule to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The schedule to the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, now with respect to a bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a registrar of records and for other purposes, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 11 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 11 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clauses 2 through 11 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the schedule of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the schedule to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The schedule to the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, with respect to a bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act 2023, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that clause 2 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that Clause 2 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. Clause 2 of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill is agreed, that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that Madam President do now take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that it has been moved and seconded that Madam Chair do now take the chair. Madam President do now take the chair. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair.
Oh. The House adjourned to the 11th of September. There were 7, the 11th and not the 18th. I thought I heard the 18th. I heard the 18th, yeah.
Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the several bills, having made no amendments thereto.
Let me pen, please. Honorable Senators, Senator Pickstock, Chairman of the Committee of the Whole, has reported that the committee has examined the bills, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading of bills, third reading and passing of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to regulate the issuance, sale, and trade of digital assets in or from within the Bahamas, and to repeal and replace the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2020.
Second.
Seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to regulate the issuance, sale, and trade of digital assets in or from within the Bahamas, and to repeal and replace the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act 2020.
Order this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Bill, Act 2024. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to update and modernize the law relating to the regulation of securities exchanges and the securities industry, to expand and enhance the powers of the Securities Commission, to repeal the Securities Industry Act, Chapter 363, and for connected matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to update and modernize the law relating to the regulation of securities exchanges and the securities industry, to expand and enhance the powers of the Securities Commission, to repeal the Securities Industry Act, Chapter 363, and for connected matters.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Securities Industry Act 2024. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to provide for the membership of the Bahamas as a shareholder country in the Corporación Andina de Fomento and for purposes connected thereto.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for the membership of the Bahamas as a shareholder country in the Corporación Andina de Fomento and for purposes connected thereto.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Corporación Andina de Fomento Act 2024. Further third readings of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Civil Aviation Amendment Act 2024. Further third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Authority Bahamas Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Authority Bahamas Act.
Ordered that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Civil Aviation Authority Bahamas Amendment Act 2024. Further third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to establish a public-private partnership between the government of the Bahamas and the LJM Maritime Academy to facilitate the progression of economic growth and national development of the maritime sector in the Bahamas.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill do now pass. And it's been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Or the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to establish a public-private partnership between the government of the Bahamas and the LJM Maritime Academy to facilitate the progression of economic growth and national development of the maritime sector in the Bahamas.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be National Maritime Instruction and Training Act 2024. Further third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to regulate the handling of cannabis and the establishment of the Cannabis Authority.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Cannabis Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for the approval and regulation of longevity and regenerative therapies and related matters.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Longevity and Regenerative Therapies Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment and licensing of cannabis dispensaries.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a second time and passed. A third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment and licensing of cannabis dispensaries.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Pharmacy Amendment Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drugs Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Dangerous Drugs Act.
Order that this bill be order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Dangerous Drugs Amendment Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to the grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework relating to grant and administration of patents, to repeal and replace the Patents Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Patents Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to repeal and replace the Copyright Act and to modernize the law regarding copyright.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Copyright Act 2024 for the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to improve the legislative framework with respect to the protection and registration of trademarks, to give effect to certain international obligations of the Bahamas with respect to trademarks, to repeal the Trademarks Act 2015, and to provide for connected matters.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Trademarks Act 2024. Further third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to establish the Registrar of Companies.
Order this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Registrar of Companies Act 2024. Further third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a registrar of records and for connected purposes and for other purposes.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for and regulate the appointment of a registrar of records and for other purposes.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Registrar of Records Act 2024. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act 2023.
Second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Law Reform and Revision Act 2023.
Order that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Law Reform and Revision Amendment Act 2024. For the third reading of bills.
And none, Madam President.
Consideration of House amendments. Resolutions. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I would like to renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Madam President, before I move the adjournment, I would just like to say on behalf of all senators who may not have gotten an opportunity to speak today, we share in the offers of condolences to the family of the former clerk of the House, Mr. Maurice Tynes, on the death of his son, as well as to Minister Miles LaRota on the loss of his son, and as well to Stolid Councillor Beverly LaRota on the loss of her grandson. And we want to just publicly express our condolences and assurance of our prayers and support. I also, Madam President, on behalf of all senators who would not have an opportunity to say so today, to wish our Olympic team well. Go Team Bahamas. Congratulations on this achievement, and you're a winner just by making the Olympic team. And we look forward to doing your best. That's good enough for us. And we also want to offer well wishes to the Honorable Prime Minister on the successful procedure that he underwent today. He is probably not watching because his doctors would have told him not to get too much stress by watching the Senate proceedings. So,
sitting up in bed watching TV.
Okay. So, yeah, all right. But we wish him well and a speedy recovery and safe return home. So, Madam President, with that, that other place has adjourned until, I believe, I'm advised the date is September 18th. And so I move that the Senate on its rising do adjourn sine die.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Yes, Madam President, before I move the final adjournment, I just want to thank all senators for their contributions over the past few days, their thoughtful contributions, and their endurance. Madam President, we had two very, very full days, but I think we were able to do some good work in those 2 days. So thank all senators for their attendance and their participation. So with that, Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. The Senate stands adjourned. Sine die.